To the youth of this city, I will seek justice on your behalf. This is a moment. This is your moment.
Baltimore State's Attorney Marilyn Mosby raising some eyebrows with comments she made after announcing criminal charges against 6 police officers in the death of Freddie Gray. And it's time now for our Sunday group, Fox News senior political analyst Brit Hume, Sheryl Gay Stolberg, who's been reporting from Baltimore this week for the New York Times, syndicated columnist George Will, and Fox News political analyst Juan Williams. Sheryl, the Times spoke with Mosby on Friday just after she announced the charges against those 6 police officers. How does she explain what some observers think were excessively political remarks?
You know, I think you have to look at her in the context of who she is. She's a 35-year-old black woman. She's the daughter and granddaughter of police officers. She grew up in a tough neighborhood in Boston, saw her own cousin killed on her doorstep. So she is someone who would say to you, look, I know both sides. I come from a family of police officers, but also as a black woman, I've experienced harassment by police. So I see the good and the bad. She says, does that shape me? Do I have a certain perspective? Yes, I do.
We asked you for questions for the panel, and we got several about exactly this issue. Now, Nathan Springsped writes on Facebook, do you believe this is politically driven to appease the city residents? And DocTab tweeted this, seems like the mob is dictating that these cops be punished. They don't care about due process. Will they get a fair trial? George, how do you answer those viewers?
Well, when Ms. Mosby says, I have heard your call, and she's referring to demonstrators around the country, no justice, no peace, that does inject a kind of plebiscitary element into a criminal justice system that shouldn't have any of that. On the other hand, the police have, under a policeman's Bill of Rights negotiated by their union with the state of Maryland, they have a right not to answer any questions for 10 days after an incident such as this. It said she should have gone to the grand jury. I don't know why. The old axiom is that a grand jury you can get a grand jury to indict a ham sandwich. That's not a real protection of individual rights. What is very interesting is the specificity with which she laid out findings already. That is, in the 45-minute ride when Mr. Gray was in the van, she says it made 4 stops, and after the first stop, she said he suffered his spinal cord injury as a result of, her words, as a result of him being shackled at the ankles and unrestrained in the back of the van. That's an awful lot of information, and it'd be interesting to know, and in fullness of time we will know, where it came from.
Juan, your reaction to that, and your reaction to this concern that when she said, I've heard your voice and we're seeking justice for Freddie Gray, that it makes it sound like she's responding to the street.
Well, no, you know, I differ with George. I think that politics, of course, plays a role in all of our functions. I mean, obviously, she's an elected official. She's not there appointed or something like that. She's an elected official. And I think it's appropriate that people are aware of the larger social context here, which is that there is a standing grievance in the black community, especially among poor black people, about treatment by the police. I mean, let's cut to the chase here. The reality is you have concentrated areas of poverty in this country, extreme poverty. You put up some of the numbers before about how impoverished that neighborhood is in Baltimore, school dropout rates, unemployment, and the like. And then we ask police to go in there and deal with the chaos, the disorder, the extreme violence that's part of those communities. And it's very difficult to put police in that position. But once you do, the question is then, is it fair for police to, well, be abusive, be brutal in treating those people? And of course, the political structure that George was talking about just a moment ago has often said they are our blue line against that chaos spreading, affecting downtown business districts and middle-class neighborhoods. But the reality is, you go back to the Moynihan report, Chris, you know, almost 50 years ago now, Daniel Patrick Moynihan had it right. The breakdown of the family, high single-parent families, that's who those kids were that were rioting in Baltimore this week, who set that city on fire.
If I might just interject and follow up on Juan, Marilyn Mosby ran on a platform of pursuing police misconduct aggressively. This has been an issue in Baltimore long before the death of Freddie Gray. It's an issue that the police commissioner and the mayor, both of whom are black, have grappled with. And People in Baltimore who were concerned about police treatment of black men campaigned aggressively to oust her predecessor. So this was on the table. The table was set when she was elected in November, and she's only 4 months on the job.
That does not relieve her of the responsibility in any individual case to view it with impartiality. And when she says, as she did the other day, that she's working, quote, to deliver justice on behalf of this young man, she's talking, of course, about the victim, Freddie Gray, she is basically suggesting to anybody listening that she is, in a sense, representing him and his case, not representing the people of Baltimore, all the people of Baltimore, but this young man. Now, the context of that was such that she clearly was trying, by her words, to quell the violence in the streets. That's understandable. But I think perhaps not to the extent that she, as far as she went to suggest that that she came into this to some extent with an agenda and her mind made up.
Sheryl, how do you respond to that?
I think some people in Baltimore do think that she was trying to quell the violence in the streets. One lawyer who handles police brutality cases said to me she probably saved the city a lot of stress. And in fact, we did see a clear change in the mood in the city of Baltimore yesterday. A protest last Saturday turned violent. This was before Monday night's riots. Yesterday in the streets of Baltimore, there was almost a celebratory feel. I certainly can't speak to whether that was Ms. Mosby's intent, but that is clearly the result.
Well, there are other inputs here as well. When the rioting began, the police went in the opposite of the way they originally went into Ferguson. You remember that was thought to have gone so badly. The police went in too heavy. They were over-militarized and the rest of it. It was thought that didn't work very well. Well, they went in light in Baltimore the first night, and they stood back and allowed looting and arson and so forth to go forward right under their noses. That didn't work very well either. And once the force was built up, the National Guard was brought in, the riots gradually began to die down. This may have, helped to end them finally, but there was more to it than this indictment as far as quieting the city.
The fact that we're having this discussion about the political content of this whole process indicates we're setting up a very delicate decision, and we know it can go wrong. That is, whether or not he can get it can be a fair trial here for these 6 officers, 3 white, 3 black, or whether there should be a change of venue. In the Rodney King beating in Los Angeles, they decided to change the venue. They moved the trial to Simi Valley.
I was there.
A suburban place where a lot of LAPD police officers live. The officers were acquitted, and the fact that the trial had been conducted in Simi Valley may have led to some of the worst rioting in American history.
I actually covered
that's what we see with Staten Island, where you had a video of the man being choked, and yet there's no grand jury indictment. So you have a situation here where she could have decided to go to the grand jury, she could have charged as she did, or she could have declined. But she says she had a thorough process. That's what she said, thorough and comprehensive. So to my mind, what's important here is under due process, which is what I hope the policemen get, Brit. I mean, black and white police involved here, is that there be transparency and speed to this process. And that is delivering, I think, on an American promise back to our Constitution that there should be speed and transparency and fairness in the delivery of justice. And that's what I think a lot of people in the black community feel there has not been with respect to the way that poor black people are treated by the police.
I would only add one other thing to that, and whatever this process, impartiality. All right.
That's fairness.
Okay.
All right.
We have to take a break here. We'll see you a little later.